We're going to go now to John Bolton, who is a former US ambassador to the United Nations. He also served as US National Security Advisor to President Donald Trump in his first term. He joins us from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for being with us, Ambassador. As we've just heard, Trump has said he will hit Iran again hard tonight, Thursday night. And at some point, he says he wants to take Kharg Island and other oil infrastructure, as well as assume total control of Iran's oil and gas markets. What do you make of these latest statements from the president?
Well, this is Trump in typical fashion, bragging about what he may do, making threats he may or may not follow through on. I don't think the Venezuela model of taking control of Iran's oil and gas production facilities makes much sense. I think the real question is what Trump is going to do to get out of the trap that he's put himself in, because his objectives were not clear, because we haven't finished any aspect of what possible objectives might be. He's now caught between the pressure of high prices of oil internationally on the one hand, and his failure to really resolve the basic issue of Iran's nuclear weapons program and support for international terrorism. So I think he's just, at this point, he feels very, very pressured. He doesn't see an easy way out. He's worried about American domestic politics much more than anything else. And that explains some of these remarks.
Ambassador, how do you think he can get out of this trap, as you say, that he's got himself into? Because it's been more than 100 days of this conflict. We still see the resistance shown by Iran and its not only ability, but its willingness to continue to target US forces in Israel as well as Gulf countries. I mean, can he bomb his way to a deal here, do you think?
Well, let's be clear. The reason the regime in Iran is resisting is it could not care less about the Iranian people and the desperate economic situation they find themselves in. Trump doesn't have that luxury. He's got elections coming up in November, and Republicans are very worried about the inflation that is being caused by higher oil prices. Though there are several things Trump could do. I'll just give you one idea that I think has the most immediate impact. And that is to, if necessary, use military force to open the Gulf Arab side of the Gulf side of the Gulf, the Arab side of the Gulf, in order for them to be able to ship their oil and gas into international markets. I would keep the blockade against Iranian shipments of oil and other commodities. But I think, as we've seen, some ships are now getting out of the Strait of Hormuz, not as many as before the war, that's for sure. But I think that a lot of what Iran is doing is bluffing here as well. I think it's very doubtful that there are many mines in the Gulf or the Strait, and I think their ability to withstand the pressure that's being put on them, including last night by the U.S. strikes in the region, really gives us a possibility to relieve the pressure on the international economy by allowing Gulf Arab oil shipments out, but keep the pressure on the regime in Iran by prohibiting their shipments.
Ambassador, is that not advocating what Donald Trump has just said, to take Kharg Island and a lot of Iran's oil infrastructure and retake control of the Strait of Hormuz?
No, we don't need to take control of Kharg Island. We have a blockade that makes it very clear no ships carrying Iranian oil or ships trying to enter the Gulf to reach Iran are going to be able to do it. And I think it's pretty clear that, unless it's a boat about 15 feet long, nobody is going to get through our blockade. So you don't need military action against Kharg Island. What Trump is referring to in terms of taking control of the oil infrastructure is he thinks he has control of Venezuela's oil infrastructure, having removed Nicolas Maduro, the former dictator in Venezuela. In fact, he doesn't really have full control. That's a very debatable proposition, and it's not a kind of scenario you can play out in Iran. That's not going to happen until the regime in Tehran falls. And I don't think Trump is willing to do what's necessary to make that happen, unfortunately. So an interim, a lesser step, as I say, is using military force, which I think would be necessary, open commerce in the Gulf and through the Strait to the Gulf Arab countries.
Speaking of the Gulf Arab countries, obviously everyone here in the Gulf is watching this all play out in real time, incredibly concerned. We know that one of the red lines for the United States is for Iran never to have a nuclear program. But analysts say that Gulf states are now actively sceptical about continuing to rely solely on the United States for its defences. Do you think that's a direct consequence of the US proving itself an unreliable ally over the last several months?
Well, I think there are a lot of countries all around the world, including NATO allies and allies in the Pacific, that are worried about Trump. And what I'd say to the Gulf states is the same thing I think applies to NATO and our Pacific allies. There's 2.5 more years of Trump, and he does not reflect the future after that. It's not even clear he reflects the future of his own policies through tomorrow. But the only way to avoid Iranian hegemony in the Gulf, control of not just the Strait, but effectively control of the whole Gulf region, is to continue to try and pressure the regime, try to help bring it down. There's not going to be any lasting peace through diplomatic appeasement of this regime, that's for sure.
OK, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much, Ambassador. John Bolton, former US Ambassador to the United Nations. He also served as the US National Security Advisor under President Trump in his first term.